Hey guys, this is Derek from One River Tea. What we're going to do today is look at the Dancong sample set. We've already done the bamboo leaf fragrance, and we're getting into this almond fragrance. So right now we have this almond fragrance Dancong, which is a little misleading because within that big book of Dancong, there are a few different types of almond fragrance. So the main two are the Xiang and the Xingren Xiang. The Xingren Xiang is an apricot kernel fragrance. The Xiang is a peach kernel fragrance. I think as I mentioned in the Dancong sample set video, the introduction to it, if you've ever had a peach pit and you crack it open, you'll find almonds inside, which is ridiculous. But that's apparently where almonds come from. They can also come from apricots. So the idea here is apricot kernel almonds are a little more popular in China, where peach kernel almonds are a little more popular in the West. Therefore, this is commonly called the Chinese almond fragrance, where the other one is just almond fragrance. But we'll stick to their names, peach kernel and apricot kernel, just to help alleviate some of the miscommunication confusion. But let's take a look at the leaves first. As you can see, these leaves are a little more slender and thin than a lot of the tea we've seen so far. It's really a characteristic of this varietal is the very small leaves. You can barely even see them sometimes. What we're going to do now is we're going to weigh it out. Ooh, there is a nice nuttiness to it. This Xingren Xiang is often charcoal roasted in a classic way, so it's considered a classic Dancong, not a fragrant or a Qingxiang Dancong. Some of the bouquet styles are called Qingxiang. I've had a really good Qingxiang Yashishang for a while now, from I think Wei gives it to us, and it's just fantastic. It's really fragrant forward, where this will be a little more kind of mouthfeel, a little sweeter in the back of the throat. The Huigan will be a little stronger. It won't be as much on the nose, but let's see. So I've already boiled my water. I'm going to get right into it. I'll reheat it. This is just a really quick rinse of all of the vessels. As you can see, I'm using my brand new vessel. I really like this one. This is the 1,000 miles of rivers and mountains. So I'll add the tea in that now that it's all heated up. Air it out because this is a very fragrant tea. So you warm the vessel, put the tea in there, shake it up, and that kind of aerates the tea. Kind of gets it so that you get your first real smell of it. Some producers will take the raw tea in their hands, breathe into it, and then smell it again. And that kind of gives it a little wake-up call. Speaking of wake-up call, you might have heard the music again. This is part of an ongoing kind of funeral rite in my community. If you saw the last video where I talk about this new teaware, I kind of mentioned the funeral rites and stuff like that, and how I don't want to impose by using the sound in this video, but it is kind of a tangential thing. I think all we can do is appreciate it for what it is and understand it as a very kind of somber thing. A somber yet celebratory thing. So if you hear the music going on, that's just what's going on in my apartment complex right now. My apartment complex has 30 buildings, 20 people in each one, maybe more, so it's a pretty big place. Oh, yeah, the fragrance on that is beautiful. So it's really woody, nice charcoal bake. This is from spring of 2020, so it's had a few months to kind of age down and mellow out. So you don't get a lot of the fire. What you get is more of just that burnt wood. Yeah, I can't wait to really open it up. So as you see, I have my standard where it's Gaiwan, Gongbei, fragrance cup, and then another teacup. I'm using a little lighter teacup here, just because I felt a little lighter today. It's a nice sunny September day. So let's heat these leaves up and see. This is just a rinse. Ooh, that pour is beautiful on this new Gaiwan. I'm very happy about it. Okay, So again, this is just the rinse, but it kind of gives you an inkling of what the tea will look like in the future. So it's going to be a more yellow, less gold. Okay, just heat everything up with the tea water as well. Dump it out into my wastewater bin, and let's give these leaves a smell from the top. Oh, there's something fantastic in there. So like, imagine like, you know, like the burnt caramel or like kind of burnt sugar that you would get in like a pastry, something like that, like a cake with like, you throw a little bit of sugar on top and that caramelizes in the oven. I'm getting that with the amount of roast, with a little bit of that wood. Ooh, it's really, really fragrant. Now it's kind of like a cedar sauna, if you can imagine that. Again, the leaves are still very, very slender. It's a really, really pretty tea to look at. So, let's give it the first real brew. And as per my usual, what I will do is I will save a cup of this for the very end, that Huan Hun Tang. And so we can kind of see what we get off that first infusion at the very end. First, just do a flash infusion. Should be enough. Wow. If anything, the liqueur is even lighter than the last infusion. Very interesting. Let that cool down. But yeah, as mentioned, the tea is incredibly light. So, pour it into my aroma cup, then pour the rest into this Huan Hun Tang. I'll set that aside for the very end of the session. Okay. What I'm getting on here is that butteriness, very common of these high mountain, lightly roasted Dancongs. This is a little more roast than is per usual for Wei, but the aroma really carries over in the empty cup. Again, this is the first infusion, so it dissipates very quickly. Yeah, it's almost already gone, so. It's very, very sweet in the mouth. This is very interesting. It's very green, despite that roast. Let's give it another infusion. Oh yeah. On that I'm getting like the malted barley. Kind of, if you've ever made beer, there's a session where, there's a part where you steep the wort, and the wort is the malted barley, for about an hour or so. You essentially make a nice thick oatmeal, and that extracts all of the sugars from the oats into liquor, which you eventually ferment into beer. But these leaves smell like that moment of that malted barley permeating the air. Yeah, again, it's very, very green. So the roast has just really, really dissipated very quickly. This is a tea I feel like will do very well with age. Give it maybe a full year, and the roast will just meld with the fragrance and the aroma of the leaves, the taste of the leaves, and they'll find a new state. Dancong doesn't quite usually age with time very quickly. We have some old Dancong that's like 30 years old, 40 years old. That changes. But over a few years, really all you get is this mellowing, this marriage of the different flavors, the roast and whatnot. This Gaiwan pours beautifully. Okay. Here we're getting a little more color into the fragrance, into the liqueur, sorry. But it's a very, very clean tea. Very little debris in there. This is a tea I imagine if you brewed it in a glass, in a clear glass with these leaves, and you poured boiling water into it, you would be able to see the oils coming off of the leaves very, very clearly. I might try and do a video like that later, but again, the leaves are very, very small. Very thin, slender, twisted. Let's see what this fragrance is like in the cup. I never used to like teaware very much. You know, just a simple gaiwan basic cup is all you need, but sometimes it is nice having a teacup you really like that you use all the time, because you use it all the time if you really drink tea. I'm not getting much of the empty cup aroma from this guy. Maybe it's still early in the infusions. Yeah, just a little bit of that caramel. This mouthfeel is lovely. It's surprisingly thick for being so sweet and so light in color. Yeah, I would consider this a very oily mouthfeel. Not as creamy as the Yashishangs could be. Give the leaves a smell. Interesting. Yeah, the roast is still very present on these leaves, but it doesn't quite come across in the cup. Very interesting. So maybe it has mellowed out more than I thought, because one of the signs of the tea mellowing out, the merging between the roast and the tea itself, is that the roast permeates through the entire tea. It doesn't dissipate after one infusion. Very interesting. I'm getting some of the guihua aroma from it. Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of that kind of buttered toast remaining. Okay, let's get into the second infusion now. Sorry, the third infusion goes. So again, I didn't boil the water. So we'll see how it goes. But we'll see how this infusion is. Usually in the third infusion, you really get to the core of the tea. And that's usually where I go in the videos. I'll go maybe to 3, maybe 4 infusions. Just because that way you really understand how to wake up the tea and know where you're trying to get to when you're drinking. So hopefully it can be very beneficial when you're trying to kind of arrive at that right liqueur color, the right fragrance. The tasting notes that are described in the website are usually based around the third and the 4th infusion. So let's give it a pour. Again, this is just incredibly clean. I love seeing that. For me, there are so many different types of Dancong, and this is very one quick indicator. Is it a high quality Dancong or not? How clean is the liqueur? So let's pour it out in here. Let me finish this second infusion. So this is the second infusion of the tea that we've been drinking. Again, as I mentioned, really the third infusion is what we want, but this has been cooling down. So as the tea cools down, you also get different aromas, you get different flavors. And so it's really interesting, the whole process. There's no one specific way to drink tea, or like one way that makes the tea perfect. You kind of have to experiment. Maybe you like this tea at a little cooler temperature. Maybe you cool it off for a lot longer before you pour it out. But again, that's the joy of drinking tea, is it's not a science. There's scientific elements to it, like the temperature, the timing. But again, it's kind of like baking bread, where it really comes down to your feeling. And you kind of know what the tea needs, if you need to push the temperature, if you need to push the time. It's all this great learning process. The more you drink tea, the better you get at it. Yeah, in these early infusions, I'm getting a lot of leaf, which is amazing because the aroma has a lot of the roast, but the tea has a lot of the leaf. And the way the roast affects the taste, I would say, is primarily within the mouthfeel. And so you're not tasting the roast, you're feeling the roast. And I think that's really amazing. Because we had one of these teas from Wei last year where he didn't do a charcoal roast, he did an electric roast. And it's really fragrant forward, you can really feel it and smell it in the mouth. But this is something else. This is more mature, a little less less sharp on the edges. And I do like that at a lower temperature. Speaking of lower temperature, this is the aroma cup. I'm trying to cool it off here by doing this because you want it at a certain temperature range in order to smell the aerosolizing aromas. Yeah, it's still a little hot, so I'm smelling a lot of the sharper edges of the tea. Yeah, so I'm getting that sauna aroma, that, you know, really, really warm cedar wood. Nothing burnt in here. I've mentioned kind of the burnt sugar, but it's not quite burnt sugar. It's more like the caramel, like warm sugar, baked sugar. So yeah, like the idea of like baked toast, baked bread, butter on the baked toast. That's what I'm getting from this empty cup. So let's see what this third cup is. So this goes back into one of the silly ways I describe really good teas. It's very drinkable. And I drink a lot of teas, especially when I'm out sourcing. I'll drink cup after cup after cup after cup of so many different varietals, so many different producers, so many different grades. And at that point, what I want is a tea that's not offensive. A tea that, no matter how much tea I've had, I'll still want to drink it. And this is a tea like that, where it's very, very subdued, it's very mellow, and gives you just what you want. That said, I feel like a tea like this won't blow your socks off. It won't really impress you. A lot of the new tea drinkers, they want something really interesting, like the Lapsang Sochong, the really, really roasted oolongs and stuff like that, the really floral teas. They want something impressive. But I think the more mature you get with your tea drinking, you kind of want something that's subdued, something that's really, really pleasant, that isn't shouting how good it is, but you can tell how good it is, just in the mouthfeel, in the liqueur, the way it makes you feel as you drink it. And I feel like this is a key one of those teas, one of like the most like deciding teas if you're trying to figure out where you are in that tea journey. If you can drink this tea and just immediately realize, wow, very good quality, because I think this is a tea that could slide under the radar for a lot of people. Because the sweetness is there, the mouthfeel is there, it's very, very comforting. That's what we use in Chinese. It's very shufu. It's very comforting as you're drinking it. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. This is great. I might even go to 4 infusions in this video just to push it really quickly. Again, that wasn't with boiling water, so I'll boil this water and see where it goes. But yeah, I had a similar experience with the Bai Mu Dan last year, 2019 Bai Mu Dan, and it was just my favorite tea. And it just, like, every time I brewed it, it was just even keel the whole time, and it was really lovely. But I think I'd give it to a few people, and they were kind of waiting for, like, what's the point of it, right? Which I think is pretty silly. You know, like, what's the point of a song or the point of a flower? I really like the whole experience is the joy. And so sometimes when you're new to something, you're still trying to figure out how to understand things, and you understand things by the extremes. And so when you're new to something like tea, you're still looking for the extremes. That way you can see what the edges are, and it kind of gives you that framework, that map. But the more you get, kind of eventually when you get that map, you figure out where you want to be. You settle into that one place, and you're very, very comfortable. But also, once you get the extremes, you realize how perfect a tea can be, and how a tea might lean to one side or the other side, maybe too astringent, maybe too green. But yeah, this is really impressive with the roast, because as I mentioned, Master Wei doesn't usually roast his teas very much, but when he does, it's on point. So let's give it a pour. It's beautiful. So with boiling water, this is starting to get into that gold color. I don't know if you can see it, but I feel like I can see. It might be the ripples in the glass, but I might be able to see some of the oils in the tea. Yeah, very, very beautiful color. Very clean, as I mentioned. So let me finish up this third cup, get into the fourth. Again, I'm sweating. It's wild. Yeah. This is a tea I could drink all day, every day. Incredible. When the teas are so well merged like this, it's hard to pick out single things. One note, one note, one note. It's that synthesis, and like the more you break it up, you lose the gestalt of it, and it becomes inferior when you do break it up. It almost feels like, to me at least. Yeah, this empty cup is really good with the boiling water. Yeah, I'm still sticking to the baked bread. Some sugar on top, some butter on it. Yep. This mouthfeel is incredible. It's just like warm, rich oil that just coats everything in your mouth. The hui gan is present, but it's not overpowering. Well, now that I have this fresh in my mind, this fourth infusion, I want to get back to that Guangdong China, the very first one, and see the differences. As usual, I'll cool off a cup, rinse my palate. Sorry. Alright, so here is the Return from the Grave cup. Let's see how it tastes. Again, this is cool now, so it will have another taste in itself. But that's interesting. You get an unpleasant amount of roast from that. I would say this tea in this cup is nothing like this tea in this cup. They're totally different teas, because here the tea is still waking up. Here all I'm getting is that roast, where here I mentioned the roast is still present, but it's merged with the tea. And so this is where I'm saying, if you age this tea for another year, it'll be perfect. But right now, the first infusion, because I gave it a rinse, then this is the first infusion, I would probably rinse this tea twice if I was really trying to show it off to somebody. Yeah, because that first infusion is nothing to write home about. Interesting. I love doing that and seeing, because that was our entry point into the tea. That was our first taste of the tea, and so when I first tasted it, I was like, there was a lot of difference from what I expected. So it's good to remember where you start from, where you end up from. That way you can remember and not get anxious when you brew a tea and you're like, oh, I thought this tea was good. And you brew it and the first infusion is kind of inferior to your expectations. Just have to remember it evolves through time. This third and fourth infusion, really what you're going for. Yeah, it's just so mellow. Wow. Yeah, I feel like this is a huge characteristic of Wei, of his beautiful garden, his old trees, his very good environment, and the very light hand when he's processing. Okay, well, that's all I have for the tea tasting today. Again, this is the almond fragrance, or the Xingren Xiang, the Apricot Kernel fragrance. You can view it on the website as a standalone product. You can get it in the Dancong sample box. Thank you for joining this tea session today. If you liked it, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out this playlist that's all about the Dancong sample sets and all of the teas within it. So, take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Again, this is Derek from One River Tea. See you later.